Welcome to the latest in our series of interviews for UK Cigar Scene, and this month I'm delighted to be here with Phillip Shervington in the Cigar Museum below the James J. Fox store in St James's. And last year, if I'm right, Phillip celebrated 50 years.
That's correct, yeah.
In the tobacco business.
September last year, yeah.
And I know, because it's always hard to get a minute to talk to him, that he's still working as hard as he ever was, dispensing a wealth of knowledge for customers on cigars, pipes and pipe tobacco. So we're gonna I know it's UK Cigar Scene, but we're going to talk a bit about pipes today too, which is interesting, and a number of people cross over. So,
Yeah.
so at what age did you actually start in the business, Phillip?
I suppose in the retail side I started when I was 19 years.
Right.
Got into the retail side, but prior to that, coming from Australia, we were into growing tobacco, mainly for experimental basis for cigarette consumption in Western Australia.
Right.
And as it happened, our next door neighbour used to be a gentleman known as the Howard Hughes of the cigarette trade, a gentleman called Abraham Wicks, and he was our next door neighbour, and we used to sell him quite a lot of tobacco for his various factories around the world. And some of the brands he used to produce were things like Benson and Hedges,
Oh wow.
Silk Cut,
Uh-huh.
De Maurier, which was one of his famous brands,
Right.
no longer around today, but Benson Hedges still exists, and that's how I really got into it. And he said, you know, when you're coming to England, look me up and I'll sort you out with a job, you know.
Oh, wonderful.
And that's how I got involved in the retail side.
So tobacco was sort of a family business.
Are you talking about my
In Australia, going back.
Well, we were basically dairy farming, but we had a certain number of 100 acres that we put aside for tobacco growing.
Wow.
But this was purely experimental.
Got it.
And the government gave us quite a few grants to actually do this.
Interesting.
And we built certain barns to cure the tobacco.
Right.
This was something one did when you were that sort of age, was
Wow.
to string it all up into what we call hands of tobacco.
Uh-huh.
And then it was all flue cured, so these barns were very, very high, and they were put on long poles, and then you had to put these hands of tobacco on the poles and then lift them up.
Right.
And then we had to sort of stoke the fires over a period of a week or so for the tobacco to be
dry out.
cured.
Wow.
And that's how it developed. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you found your way as a young man
Yeah.
to here in
England.
Britain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where did your contact sort of kick you off? Where did
Well,
you start?
I ended up in a Chichester of all places,
Okay.
and then from there I made contact with Abraham, and then he said come up and see me, and then it really went from there. Yeah.
And where did you start off? Where were you?
I started in Piccadilly, right on the Piccadilly Circus itself, 217 Piccadilly.
Wow.
We had a small store there which we specialised in pipes, cigars, and all under our own name. And we did one or two brands of cigarettes as well, but it was mainly pipes. You know, it was a brand that we were trying to launch, and we did quite successfully. And we had it in various duty-free shops around the world as well. So it was known as the Barbic pipe with the famous red spot.
Okay, a red spot.
Red
Aha.
spot.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't a copy of the
Similar,
white
similar,
spot,
similar
but
to, yeah.
there was a pipe known as the Plum, Dr. Plum, and we had a little bit of controversy over that. But they had to put the red spot on the mouthpiece, but put the word plum. So
Right.
we had the rights to use it without.
To use it in that way.
Yeah.
And so take us sort of talk us through from Piccadilly.
From Piccadilly, I went down with rents rising. You know, we decided to move from there down to Fleet Street, Quite a famous store there known as Weingott's of Fleet Street, across from the law courts.
Okay.
And I was there several years. Again, we had a lot of alcohol. We had alcohol, pipes, cigars. It was a nice combination. You know?
Yes, yeah.
And we had pipes was quite something there. You know, we had all the judges that used to come in and buying pipes all the time. I had people like Macmillan.
Oh, wow.
He used to come in and see me. Wilson, one of his sidekicks, Wilson used to come in occasionally. Yeah, they used to sell him pipes. Yeah, so I've had quite a connection there. You know.
Interesting. And we've talked a little about you blending tobaccos. When did you start to
blending?
to do that?
I managed to learn quite a lot from a gentleman called Jones. He used to do most of the blending on the tobacco side when we were manufacturing certain brands like John Cotton. That's how I really got into blending.
Right.
And that was another brand name that Abraham Wicks used to run. Quite famous, John Cotton, before, and then he eventually sold all these different blends to Gallagher's, people like that.
Right.
Yeah, I still used to do a lot of my own blending in the shop, yeah.
And you actually did that on the premises?
Yeah, oh yeah, very much so. But today it's not allowed because most pipe tobaccos have to be analysed to make sure there's no sort of nasty additives,
right.
And, you know, various things. So, and it's quite expensive to have a pipe tobacco analysed. It's way over £200, but
right.
It has to be done, yeah. And then it can be sold, you know.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And so from Fleet Street,
From Fleet Street, I went from Fleet Street up to Chancery Lane, not a great distance away,
yeah.
Into a store called John Brumford.
Okay.
Under that branded name in the old Tudor building.
Right.
So
this is the famous High Holborn.
High Holborn.
What was on?
Which
for those
was
who
originally,
remember, on the old.
Yeah, it was
old Holborn.
It was
tins.
sort of a facsimile of the actual building itself on a Holborn tin.
Right.
Yeah. Although we never got any royalties for it, but yeah, that's how that came about, because they used to have the factory not that far away.
Okay.
Yeah, Finsbury Way.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
And that was a factory for pipes,
no, this was a factory for producing the old Holborn.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
tobacco.
I'm sorry, I understand.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and that store was known as.
It was known as John Brumford.
Right.
And then we had the actual people that owned the brand John Brumford. Originally was Sobrani.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Isidore Redstone was the gentleman that owned that.
Right.
Then we acquired it, and then we ran it for a little while, but he'd previously sold the John Brumford name to a company in Germany known as a Poschel.
Okay.
Which are big snuff producers.
Right.
In the Bavaria area.
Uh-huh.
And they used to charge us, I think, something like, for the fascia, the name was about £4,500 a year, and then everything we sold under the John Brumford name, they wanted 2.5% royalties.
Right.
And we sat down one day and thought, this is not right. You know? Why are we doing this? You know. So we tried every which way to try and work it so that we could trade with that name, but there was any way around it. So they had this name and they wanted it. So in the end, we took the name off the fascia, and the shop was running without a name for maybe a year or so. And then somebody came up with the name. You know, we've got to call this shop something. So one of my colleagues mentioned it, that, you know, everybody that phones up, they always ask for you. So why not call it Shervington? So this is how the name came about.
Your name went above the door.
Yeah. which can be a good thing and it can be not so good because people expect you to be there. This is the thing.
Right, right.
Particularly if your name's up there.
Yes. Yeah.
It's okay, but you know, I don't mind. You know, I love serving people. You know,
Yeah.
This is the thing. You know.
Well, yes. After 50 years, you have to, don't you?
Yeah,
If you don't get
they
on.
love it. No, yeah, people expect you to be there. You know,
Yes.
This is the thing, and
Yeah.
it was very
Look
difficult, very difficult at times, and it used to upset a lot of staff. You know, if I wasn't there, I was away on holiday, they would come in and expect you there, but they wouldn't want to be served by anybody else.
Oh, really?
It had to be you, which was okay to a point, but.
Nice to be wanted,
Yes,
but
yeah,
to a point.
to a point,
Everybody's got to have a holiday.
Yeah.
So, and then eventually
We ran that for several years. Rents and rates went through the roof. We were being charged something like 73,000 a year in rent. Rates were probably another nearly 20. So it was
hard to.
It was hard, you know,
Yeah.
and the whole thing changed slightly, you know, but the traffic flow of people, you know, it seemed to go down a bit, you know, and we were struggling a bit, and I thought, you know, it's time to get out, maybe retire, you know, so that's what I did, you know.
So you retired?
I retired,
Closed the store and retired.
and then I didn't close the store. It was sold, but it didn't last very long. You know.
Right.
It just, in the end, I think the chap gave the key to the landlord and said, "That's it.
Right,
I've had
I'm
enough."
done.
You know.
Right.
And then, you know, I was sort of home, not doing an awful lot, and I still like to be in the industry. So I mentioned to Robert Embry, who's now down at Number One. And he said, "Sure, Philip, come up and see me," you know. So, yeah, we struck a sort of deal there, and I started working here.
And here you are. So how many years have you been here?
It must be 7 or 8 years now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I love it, you know. And of course,
I remember you joining, and I remember being delighted to see you here.
Yeah.
So,
but a lot of customers the same. You know, they tend to, in this industry, because it's quite small, they tend to sort of sort you out, or they ask in other shops, "Well, do you know where Shervington went?" You know.
Yeah.
And they mentioned it, Fox's. So a lot of the customers that I had in Holborn are now coming here. Yeah. And it's a delight to see them, you know.
And those are sort of older customers. Do you find, as far as pipes are concerned, do you find younger people smoking pipes these days, or is it still an older person?
It's regarded generally as an older person, but we are finding, because we show more and more pipes in our window, which is something that we can actually do.
Yes, yeah.
It's you know, it hits people straight away. Pipe shop.
Yeah.
Let's go in. And we are getting a small following of youngsters coming in.
Right.
We get quite a lot of people from abroad, the States in particular, Germany, Scandinavia, all those sort of people, and they're quite young. You know, I'm saying, you know, the 25 bracket to the 30s, 35, thereabouts.
Yeah.
And it's something we do need. You know, we need more pipe smokers.
Well, as I said to you earlier, it's one of those things. I always think of it when I was young. The people who smoked pipes were my grandfather's generation. My father's generation didn't really.
Yeah.
So, but then for younger people today, they don't have that sort of that connection.
Yeah,
so it's something a bit different, isn't it?
And it is. I think people find it difficult to smoke a pipe somewhere, you know, in public. You know, it's something that we have introduced here, a pipe smoking evening, the second Tuesday of each month.
Right.
And we find we're getting more and more people coming to that. You know.
And so the sampling laws, as far as cigars are concerned, extends also to pipe tobacco as well.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Okay.
You know, and we found over the last few years they seem to mix quite well up there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's something I thought maybe it wouldn't happen, you know, because pipe smoking produces a little bit more smoke than cigars.
Right.
But they seem to work, you know, and it's nice to see, you know, more and more youngsters coming in, because, you know, we have probably less than 200,000 pipe smokers in England.
Interesting. Yeah, and I've featured the Pipe Club of London in the magazine, and also in the last 3 or 4 months, the Edinburgh Pipe Club as well.
Oh yes,
so, and I'm always out looking for regional pipe clubs, just because it does cross over between the two. Now you've got an interesting pipe there. What to you makes the perfect pipe? What's for you?
I always look at the actual pipe in its virgin state without any stain or polish on it, and I tend to look for lots of bird's eye, what we know, it's got a tight grain on both sides, and then you get a cross grain that runs this way, repeats itself, and then it repeats itself here.
Right.
And it makes it very, very strong.
Okay.
Because you got to think it's a piece of wood basically, but it's a hard piece of root. But having the grain that way, it tends to make it really tough and hard to stand up to, you know, quite a fierce sort of fire burning in there.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and over a reasonable period of time too.
Yeah. But that's what I look for in a pipe. I mean, you don't always get it in some of the manufacturers today, but you know, it's one of those things I always look for.
That's a very elegant looking pipe.
Yeah, it's known as a Canadian flat, or some people call it a lumberman shape, but I just feel so comfortable with it.
Yeah,
you know?
which is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Away you go. So, and do you still? I know you said about the testing, but are you still blending tobaccos?
I do. Yeah. I will secretly do a little blend for various customers that come in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Officially, I'm not supposed to do that. Keeping them happy. Yeah.
Excellent. And in terms of just going back to sort of cigars a little, you've been to Cuba. I know we talked about it. You've
several
been a few
times over the years. Yeah.
Have you find, because it's always interesting to talk to the people who went way back when, or who went before, you know, sort of after the revolution. I think. Have you found that things have changed in Cuba? Have you?
Things are not as strict as they used to be. You know, we were when we first went out there, we were close guarded by different guides, not to go here, not to go there.
Right. Okay.
They were quite strict on that, you know. But today I find it's, you know, you can go into some of these factories, particularly the old Partagas factory. I can go in there many a time and sort of sort out some of the old drawers there, and they look at you a bit strange. Oh, I'm just having a look at some of the old bands, you know, some of the old Dunhill bands, things like that. And it's much more freer.
Much more open.
Yeah, much more open now. Yeah. But,
and how have, in terms of the industry in the UK, how's that changed in your time?
Probably, you know, when I first came into it, we were probably selling something like 11.25 million sticks of Cuban cigars. Today, I would think we're probably barely 3 million.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it's dropped. Huge, but Cuba keeps trying to reinvent themselves by producing larger format cigars, you know, which are in vogue at the moment. But I think they still shouldn't, you know, sort of look for their standard sort of cigars, you know, something like a Petit Corona, particularly, you know, my brand, you know, the Rafael Gonzalez. I think, you know, they're more for the larger size, you know.
Yes.
And I think they should still look after the traditional shapes and sizes.
Sometimes not a bad thing that the market moves on to the larger sizes, because it leaves the nice small aged cigars like that for you and me to smoke.
Yes.
While everybody else moves on to those bigger,
things in vogue,
much more modern things. Just leave the smaller, the elegant half-hour smoke for you and me to enjoy. So I always enjoy that. So we're down here in. We were just talking about this in, I think, what's pretty much the world's only cigar museum.
I think so.
Well, no, that's not true. So there's one in Havana, at least I know.
Isn't there? There is the Upman one in Havana, isn't there? Yeah.
I always think about that. But anyway, we're certainly in London's foremost cigar museum. There's a wealth of history here. If you could pick a couple of pieces out, Philip, what would you think of in the cabinets here?
I like. The little punch
the little
burner, the little burner there, which is you have to look at it to think, now what is this, you know?
Uh-huh.
But it's actually a burner that's mounted on a piece of wood.
Right.
The actual gas runs through it, and the gas jet with the fire comes out of its mouth. You know, it's something a bit unique, that.
Lovely. So that would have sat on a tobacconist
main counter.
Okay, for the gentleman to light his cigar. Lovely. That's a great bit of history.
It's a nice piece. I have another one upstairs in one of the showcases there from my own shop, which stands slightly higher.
Wow.
Victorian piece, and it has the top jet for cigarette smoking. It has another jet for pipe smoking. And it has a little cylindrical brass side a bit on the side for spills, so people want to light cigars, then they take a spill, light it from the top, and then away they go.
Wonderful.
It's just a quite unique piece, that. But
well, there's some lovely history down here.
It's fantastic.
And I know that things are moved around every now and then.
Yes.
And there's always something interesting and new to discover down here.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Well, listen, we're going to finish with our usual 3 questions. So, and I'm going to extend this to a cigar or a pipe. So we're not just a cigar. What do you like to drink with a cigar or a pipe?
Gin is one of my favourite drinks. You know, like a Monkey 47. That is superb.
Right. It's a nice clean drink to drink with a
it conjures up
actually
so many things. You know, like the Black Forest where it's produced. I think it's just something else.
Wonderful.
It's won so many awards, but it's just such a clean drink.
Excellent. Now, your favourite place, if you go anywhere in the world to enjoy a cigar or a pipe, where would you
sitting on the beach in St Thomas in the Virgin Islands. It's just such an idyllic temperature, white sand, and hardly anyone around, and just sit there and smoke a cigar. You know, my favourite cigar.
You can't really argue with that.
Definitely not. It's one of the nicest places in the world. I've been there several times.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And your most memorable cigar or pipe? You had to sort of think back to one particular cigar or one particular pipe.
Probably a Dom Perignon.
Okay.
A 76.
Oh, lovely.
And it was just sheer bliss. It was like an hour and 25 minutes. It was just so delighted. And I just sat there, no phones ringing, just enjoying this lovely cigar. It sticks into my mind like, well, one of those things.
It's these days, very, very rare cigar. Not many people have these days can claim they smoke one of those. So it's very...
something else.
I'm definitely going to stick. Philip, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
That's a walk through London's tobacco and cigar and pipe history.
So, you're very welcome.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.